Hi, I'm your host, Jürgen Strauss from Innova.Buzz, and I'm excited to welcome back to the Innova.Buzz podcast today, Kim Doyal, who helps creators and entrepreneurs shift their thinking to truly partner with AI, moving beyond the basic content generation to unlock a deeper understanding and achieve remarkable outcomes in their business. Welcome back to the Innova.Buzz podcast, Tim. It's truly wonderful to have you on the show again.
Thanks for having me, Jürgen. It's so fun when I think about how far back we go, right? And the evolution that we've gotten to have dinner in person in two separate parts of the globe. I love it. So thank you for having me.
Yes, wonderful. So Kim's one of the people that I've met online and then connect and across the world, across different continents, and then actually had the opportunity to share a lunch with her and meet in person and have an in-person conversation. And we've done a lot of work together in between. So we've done lots over the years.
Yeah.
And now, before we dive in, a quick note for our listeners, especially if you're new to the Innova.Buzz podcast. Each episode's a candid and practical conversation with a remarkable guest like Kim, exploring how they create impact and build human connection in their work. We're going to unpack their knowledge, attitudes, and values and how those translate into action. We're going to start with the big picture, then dig into stories, strategies, actionable ideas, hopefully some that you can use right away. At the very end, we're going to wrap up with our buzz round, and there's 3 rapid fire questions I ask every guest. Now, Kim's been on the show twice before, but her buzz round questions at the time would have been different. So you'll get a new set this time, Kim. So listeners, think of this as a seat at the table, you, me, and Kim all learning together. All the resources and highlights, as always, will be in the show notes so that you can revisit anything later that sparks your interest. Now, Kim, after sharing your insights, and it was way back in episode 52 and 85, can you believe it? And we're up to about 678 or something, I think.
I was like, well, I mean, I saw how far you are at. That's wild. That's wild.
Yeah. So, yeah, and having been friends for some time, as we mentioned, I always look forward to our conversations, and I've watched your journey and the way you consistently adapt and forge new paths, always with a clear vision of what's next and how to get there. So your perspective on AI, I'm really excited to dig into. And I was reading one of your recent articles on Substack, asking people to shift their thinking about AI to not just getting it to create content, but truly to ask. And that shifts the landscape on how we view and leverage this technology. And I know this is something that I've certainly been using very actively. And in the early days we worked together on it, we were doing that already. So given your drive to move towards that more impactful creation with AI as kind of a partner, as you put it, what's the vision you aim to bring into the world regarding that human AI partnership?
Well, the first thing, it's not maybe to address the monkey in the room or not, but I know there's a lot of noise around AI, and I know there's concerns. I think some are legitimate. I think some are best guesses, for lack of a better word. And it's here, it's moving, it's not going to go back. I mean, we know that. So I think there's a way to find how you can adopt it and work in your business and your life. And I think that AI gives me my time back. Like, that's kind of my goal, especially at this stage of life. I'm midlife now, and I want to use it to create faster, not in the sense that it's like I want to produce, but it's because I want to go in the pool in the afternoon, right? Or like I want to take a couple extra days off or something. So I can get so much more done, which to me is giving me more of my humanity back, in essence. And at the same time, there's this other, I don't know about you, Jürgen, you've listened to me talk enough that I talk to it the way I talk, and I've gotten, girl, you're on fire, right? Like, that's how it responds back to me. So that speaks volumes. But yeah, I just think it's such an opportune time. And this is crazy considering the state of the world, particularly the United States, that I still feel like it's one of the best times to be alive. Like, I think this is such an opportune time. And of course, I don't have a crystal ball. I don't see what's going, but I think what's missing from the dialogue in terms of beyond content and ideation and repurposing is I think that we as creators, coaches, business owners, course creators, whatever you want to, however you identify your business, is that you can create bespoke solutions for your niche, for your audience that you know is a problem that a huge company is never going to have the insight that you have because you've been in business and working with your clients and customers and readers, so that's what I am most excited about.
Hmm. Yeah, I think there's a couple of aspects there that are well worth following up. The time aspect, I think, is a big one. And I had an example last week. I'm giving a workshop tonight, a 4-hour workshop that typically to put something together like this. Now, I had the content in my head, but I haven't done this workshop before. So it's something I had to build from scratch. And typically for a workshop like that, it would have taken me 3 or 4 days in spurts to pull it all together. And I have a kind of a layout that I do. So I have a templated running sheet that gives me a guide. Okay, I have to hit the, why is this important? How do we do this? What are the practical steps, examples, stories? So I've got kind of that templated of the things that I put in there. And then I've got to create that individual content and then do the slides. Well, I gave that template to Gemini in this case and gave it a lot of the content that I had in my head, which was based on information that I'd written in the past and so on. I gave it all that and I said, here's the timeline. Can you come up with the running sheet? And it gave me the running sheet in a Word document that I could just download, and in about 10 minutes. And then we had maybe a half-hour conversation where I said, I don't like this bit, or there's a gap here. We need to add some more about that. Or in this part, I want some more interaction. What are some of the prompter questions I can use to get audience engagement? And 1.5 hours later, it was all ready. And it even asked me, do you want me to create the slides? And I said, I'll do the slides myself because there's only 5 of them. So I can do that.
Well, and sometimes it depends on the tool, right? But it's like ChatGPT does a lot of, would you like me to make this into a Canva document? I'm like, I would, but you can't. So thanks, But yeah, and it just depends because sometimes there's more trouble than it's worth to try and iterate on things. But, I don't know so the time piece of it is the other thing that I am loving. And I don't know if you saw this or are using it already, but I started using WhisperFlow and I have a Mac, which I know has voice dictation, but to be able to talk to these tools, I can't, I'm telling you, blows my mind. And at first I was like, I see a lot of voice apps and as much as I'd like to think I jump on stuff early to test it and try it, there's still this, if I can't really see a use case for it and it's like, but once I started doing the vibe coding, I was like, I can talk a whole hell of a lot faster than I can type or do screenshots. And it interprets this conversational language, which to me is just amazing. And so that's another time factor, right? It's like all of a sudden stuff that would take me this long, I can do it in this much time. And it's funny because I use all 3 of them, right? I'm using Claude. And the more I talk to it, the more it responds the way I speak, so, which entertains the hell out of me. I'm just going to go ahead and say that. I have to tell side note, and I don't know if you saw this. I posted a note on Substack, but I had to close out a issue with a client, long story. But anyways, and it was one of those that went sideways. And so, I dotted my I's, crossed my T's, whatever, and it was done. And so I did this very professional but direct, we're done email. So then I took the email and I asked GPT, I said, now I want you to give me the snarkiest, most condescending version for my entertainment purposes only. I was crying. I was laughing so hard. And then I asked it to give me a Samuel L. Jackson version. My favorite line, I had no idea they could be this sarcastic. And it was truly just for my own entertainment. But it said something like, I'm not going to take advice from someone who runs a a blank business like it's a bake sale from 1993. So there's a lot of fun to be had too. I'm just saying.
Yeah. Yeah, well, I have to confess, I read that and I was actually prompted to do a similar exercise. And the scenario I had was I got a parking fine in rather unusual circumstances, and I thought, first of all, the no parking sign was hidden. There were other cars parked there, and I was desperate to make a stop. Let's just put it that way. And so I ended up with the parking fine. I looked up the city council, and there was a appeal process. So I went through the appeal process, saying, please exercise some judgment here, some empathy. This was the circumstance, and it took a little while, and eventually I got a note back saying, here's the letter of the law. The only way we would waive this is if there's a medical emergency, and by medical emergency we mean life-threatening, and if it is life-threatening, then you need to have a first responder affidavit saying that it was life-threatening, or an emergency department of a hospital. Sort of ridiculous.
Yeah.
So I thought, and then they threatened legal action, obviously, if I didn't pay on time. So I thought, okay, well, I guess that's it. I'll pay the fine. Yeah, and I was annoyed, and I thought I should write back a note saying I'm annoyed, and so I composed the note in my own voice, and I thought, I'm not going to send that. It's not going to help any. It's only going to annoy somebody else. But then I thought of your thing, and I thought, I'm just going to. So I put my initial appeal letter in and their response. And I said, and here's what I've written, here's what I composed. I said, now I'd like you to rephrase this. And I started off, first thing that came to mind, because I just watched a Stephen Colbert video, and I thought, he's pretty sarcastic.
He's pretty witty.
And I'll say, I want you to be really sarcastic and do this in the style of Stephen Colbert. And it was so funny. I was sort of doubled over laughing. And then I thought, I'm going to have some more fun with this. And I thought, how can I really exaggerate this? And then Jim Jeffries came to mind. I don't know if you know Jim Jeffries.
It sounds familiar, but I kept doing the same thing, but keep going. Yeah.
Yeah. So I said, write it in the style of Jim Jeffries. And I was just crying for laughter. And at the end, I thought, it was sort of so funny. So,
and it diffuses your energy.
It was brilliant. Exactly.
Right?
I came out of that saying, that was almost worth spending. Like the fine was $119. I thought that was almost worth $119 just to have that.
Right. You know what I want to do now? Now that you started, because then I asked for a Tony Stark, which was okay. But I'm like, I think I need a George Carlin version. Because, it's like, who's really good with the words? But the point is, it's like there are so many use cases for it. And I think, especially as business owners, we kind of tend to stay here in our lane, and and it's like, and we know enough, to your point, like to go in and ask for, polish this or fix this, even if it's just a personal matter. But I was telling you before the call, like my dad is 81 and I'm with him, and it's like, he was blown away when he got blood tests back. I'm like, well, let's ask ChatGPT, like talk to us like we're 12, explain what all this means. So all of those things are like, I've done some vegetable gardening this summer and a couple other things. And it's like, oh, wait, I went in, I bought heirloom seeds. I had 75 seeds. And I said, create a table for me of which ones like to start with seedling, the frequency of the water. Like, it just done. And I was like, well, okay, now I'm a gardener. I've always done flowers. But so I think there's a lot of fun use cases. But then I don't know about you, but like what I find is when I use it for unique personal use cases, it's like light bulbs go off. Like,
yeah,
I wonder if I could do this. I wonder if I could do this. Yeah.
Well, one I did this week as well, and it's sort of the fun area, but hobby. So it could be serious, because if somebody's a professional photographer, So I have a camera that, an Olympus camera. They launched a new model of that camera, and I got the email saying, here's the new model. And of course, as a technology geek, first thing I do is I go and have a look at the new model. And then I saw the price and I thought, is it worth upgrading? So I thought, I'll ask ChatGPT, what are the features of this new model compared to the old model? And of course, it came back and it listed them in a table. And one of the features it listed, so these digital cameras, they have so many features that, there's stuff there that I just can't remember. And I actually have the PDF of the instruction manual on my phone. So when I'm out and about doing something, I can
smart.
go through the instruction manual and find it. Now, it usually takes ages to find something. And by that time, if it's a moving subject, that opportunity is gone. So that only works if you've got a static subject. This particular feature was for the photographers there. It's called focus stacking. And I thought, I'll ask ChatGPT. I started off, does my camera, this model, have focus stacking? And it said, yes, indeed. If you want to turn it on, here's how you do it. So, it's like 2 buttons, 5 levels down in the menu. And you have to then you see focus stacking, and then you have to go another 5 levels to turn it on and set it up. It told me how to do that so that in 2 minutes I was done. And then it said, and here's how you use it. So I thought, I've got some nice little orchids flowering outside that I'll go and photograph now. And I did that because the close-up is where that focus stacking is important. Took some photos, processed the photos. They turned out really well. And of course, in the conversation I was having, it had come back and said, where are you going to use this? I'm curious, where are you going to use this? And because I've given it my superpower as connective curiosity. So it always finishes with a question that says, I'm curious, what are you going to do with this information?
I love that.
And so I went back and I said, well, I've actually done it already. I photographed a little orchid. And then, okay, show me the photo. So I uploaded the photo, and then it told me what the orchids, because I was curious. This is something I bought at a market somewhere. I didn't know what exactly what species it was and so on. It told me the species. It told me about how it pollinates, what sort of insects it attracts. And it says, have you observed the sort of insects that are attracted there and so on? So I not only had the experience of trying out this new photographic technique, which I may not have even attempted without ChatGPT guiding me, I then learnt about the thing I was photographing. So it's just that just blew me away.
Well, and you saved yourself buying a new camera.
Well, yeah, I probably wasn't going to buy the new camera, but
yeah,
that was just the prompter to say, well, I wonder if my camera can do this thing that they were advertising as a feature. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I mean, that's the kind of stuff, the engagement, the back and the forth. Like, what did I ask Gemini last night? It was something that I was doing with vibe coding. So, well, a couple things. I'm just all over the place, but so a good friend of mine, Jason Resnick, I don't know if you know Jason or not. So he is an actual developer, right? I am not. And he's doing something with Cursor. I'm using Lovable. And he said he had sent me some videos. So I was like, you kind of run into stuff where, oh, great, to fix this. But I'm like, yeah, but you screwed up this, whatever. And so it's creating guardrails in essence that you need to do. And there's something called a PRD, which never heard of, a product roadmap document. And so he told me about it. So then I asked Gemini and said, I think we should do this. And I had been working on the prompts with Gemini. So we backed up and we did that. And then we also created a design guide, like all these little things that as much as I'd like to, like I would know to say, give me a design guide or a brand guide, right, for this app. But like finding out, it's like I'm learning so much about what I'm doing and how to navigate, because it's like to use some of these, I don't know, I'm only using Lovable, right? But you have to connect to Supabase for the all the databases, and then GitHub for version control. Like I've had a GitHub account, I never used it. But I was like, okay, but what do I do here? Where do I go? And it literally, they just walk you through it. And so, and it's in this so it's like, then I start seeing pieces fit together. And then I back up and I'm like, well, because my goal, I want to show other women how to do this. And so, like, if you don't have the experience that you or I bring to the table, right, of being in this digital marketing space and having used tools and built things for years, no, I'm not a UI or UX designer. I've got a good eye, but I'm coming at it from the user perspective. And so I think,
Hmm.
well, this doesn't make sense, or I want to go through this, right? And so where so much software is built from, I'm guessing, right? I'm going to be generalist here, but like from a developer's perspective or
Yeah.
fundraising and VC capital, and it's like, like I was saying earlier, but this is the opportunity. I'm building what I want for me. That's how this whole thing
Hmm.
started, is because I wanted to create something that I wanted to use. I'm like, I wonder if I could turn this into an app, and just kept being curious about it.
Hmm. Yeah, I think there's huge opportunities there. Um, Coming back to this idea about conversations as opposed to prompts. I mean, you've talked a little bit about this in terms of asking for specific things and then getting guides and so on. But in terms of asking or having that conversation and asking, what do you see as the best practice in that regard? Because there's a lot of, I mean, in the early days, there was all this prompt engineering. I still get a lot of
Mm-hmm.
emails because I probably subscribe to a lot of these things around prompt engineering. And in the early days, I thought, that's something I better learn. And I did a few courses, but then I've decided, okay, I probably know enough about that. And I don't necessarily need to be an expert in that, because I think the conversations is actually where you get more power from. So talk to us a little bit
Yeah.
more about that, and particularly how the learning aspect of that, both you and also the machine.
Yeah. So the conversations is, first of all, I think because I had done a workshop, right? Like conversations with ChatGPT in 2023, maybe. And it was because I had been using Jasper, and it was just fill in these form fields, right? And it was like, it felt static, but the fact that I had this, how are you today, Kim? Kind of, and I was like, well, and then I started having fun. And so the conversational side of it is, I like, look at it this way. If you were to say, I want to learn how to cook. So, and you go in and you get an opportunity to, let's say, bake, because I hate cooking. Let's say you go in to work with this world-class baker. Well, they're going to ask you some questions like, what do you
Hmm.
like to bake? What do you like to eat? All of those things. And so it's really fun to go in and say, look, this is what I'm trying to accomplish. I need you to ask me questions so we can get to the clarity of this. Here's sort of a personal example. Is I had done like, we all understand what values are, right? Our own personal values, but
Hmm.
I'd never like written it down. So I went in to ChatGPT. I said, look, I want to really define my core values, my personal core values. And let me back up a little bit, because there's a kind of a two-parter here. Is that, are you familiar with Dr. Benjamin Hardy? I had talked about him for a
Yeah. Yeah.
while. Okay.
Yeah.
So he has this exercise of your future self, and his work is great. It's a little bit more still has a corporate feel to it, for lack of a better word. And I have totally gone down the rabbit hole with Dr. Joe Dispenza and neuroscience. It's like, it felt like it was a missing piece for me to kind of
Hmm.
understand things. Anyway, so I've got a real strong spiritual bent here too. But so a couple years ago, I wrote a letter from my future self to me, like 6 months in the future. This was per Benjamin Hardy. This was very interesting. Okay, so put that aside. So then I go into ChatGPT and I say, look, I need you to ask me questions to help me define my core values. And let's get really clear on it. So it asks me questions, and then I narrate my answers, and I just talk like me.
Hmm.
I was blown
Yeah.
away with it, and it nailed me. It nailed it. And of course, I've got other stuff inside of there, right? In my voice and my own writing and all of that. But the point is, and it was just an exercise for myself. And then, and even with ChatGPT in doing this, so I I've gone on and off with Notion, and I saw you using Notion Calendar, which I am too. I love it. And but my brain doesn't think in databases. But yet with ChatGPT, it's like, do you want me to create a Notion board? I'm like, well, yes, I do.
Yeah.
Not knowing, and I'm like, okay, and then uploading a CSV file. And then I went down this crazy rabbit hole of the imagery. Like, I like watercolors, I paint. So I was blown away by what it can do. And so, and if there's something I'm not sure of, I'm like, well, how do I, if I want this to show a formula, what do we do? And it's like, let me generate the formula for you. So it's just talking to it like you would if you were trying to learn a skill or a task. And so the conversational side of it, one of my favorite things is to ask, well, you know about me, all my what I'm doing, blah, 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 and give me an answer on this or whatever. An example I did was, so obviously I'm all into, the LLMs and now vibe coding. The agents piece, as a solo business owner, I'm like, do I need agents? Like, I know there's automations I can create and stuff, but having sort of automation agents that go out and work for you, I don't necessarily see a need for me at this point, right? But so I go in and I ask ChatGPT, I'm like, you know my business, you know my model, you know what I'm doing. Where am I missing opportunities to implement and utilize AI? And even starting with Notion, like, what are its capabilities? This is what I'm doing. How can you help me? So like, would be great. At the end of the week, and I have Notion's AI, but I'm like, give me a recap of what's gone on and email it to me. And then let's store like progress or whatever. So the conversational piece, it's the way my brain works, right? I don't want to speak and think in, you're a copywriter, da, da, da. Now, a couple times I've done that with, where I'm ideating a topic for the newsletter, and ChatGPT comes back with something. I'm like, this is like a Hallmark card. What is this formula you're doing? And so I'll take that and I go into Gemini and I'm like, I need this as an editorial piece. And then of course I edit it and include my own stories and whatnot. And then I always go back to the original source. I'm like, this is what I'm looking for. This is the style. And so, the conversational piece, I think the beauty of that is it teaches you as the user where you need to get clear, where you need clarity from it. And, it's such a learning process. I'm like, I don't know. It's interesting. I have a woman who is in or is she still doing, anyways, higher education. And she's a Substack new friend. And she's been writing a lot about higher education and how, or just education in general, their lack of ability to adapt and this. And I'm like, I've probably learned more from AI in the last year and a half than I could have compiled, because the difference is I'm learning for comprehension. And at least in the States, so much of school is for test scores, right? You're being taught content subjects, K through 12, it's standardized testing. And it's like, where's the comprehension? And so that's where the conversation piece comes into it. Like, you can talk to me like I'm 12. Like, I really want you to dumb me down this, right? My dad with his heart stuff. It's like, explain the systolic and dystolic blood pressure to us, please, And it's like, oh, that's pumping the heart, So I think the conversation piece allows the user, that's where the magic happens. That's the only thing. That's where the magic happens.
Yeah, I think there's a whole bunch of things there to unpack. The first thing you said there, I think this is something I'm starting to see a few people do this, and I've done it a lot. And it's getting the AI, whichever one it is, to help you get clear about yourself, whether that's strengths, whether that's values, and I think that's a really powerful use. And the way to do that is basically tell the AI, here's what I want to do. You've got to gather the information you need to do this. Ask me questions. Yeah. And the other thing I've started to do as standard now is in any prompt I give it, at the end I'll always say, do you have any questions? And probably
that's a great one.
5 times out of 10, I get some questions. The other 5 times it says, no, I'm good. That's clear. I know what to do. And it'll go away and do it. So it's because giving it the opportunity to ask questions means that often if I don't do that, I'll get some output and I'll say, no, that's not what I was looking for. And then I'll reflect back on what I asked, and I say, no, I wasn't specific enough, or I wasn't clear enough. I've got to learn to be
Yeah.
clearer, which is another thing it forces you to do. It forces you to ask really clear questions, which I think is a good exercise simply to help us communicate better with other people.
Oh, yeah. Well, and often I'll end because when I'm dictating, it's so much fun, and I'll just say, "Does that make sense?" And it always says, "Yes, that makes sense because," right? And so you get to see a little insights, and to your point about like the personal use cases, I'm truly blown away by the different places, or I'll say, "Is there anything I'm missing?" That's one that I'll say, "Is there anything else I'm missing or that I should know about this?" And so, I mean, I've never been a coder. I've never had a desire, but I've always wanted to own software that I made. And I always joke, my famous saying is, if it's ugly, I'm gonna bounce. So now I get to make it look the way I want it to look. But
Yeah.
I don't know what I don't know by any means. And so what I'll do is now, because I've been using Claude so much for code, I'll say, "Oh, okay, this is it's Lovable's asking me to refactor this," or it says, I say it hits an error. Should I try to fix it? Because that's going to use a credit. And it says, "No, look at the error. Give me the code." And so, but it's just, I have a level of patience I didn't think I had. And truthfully, I don't know how you feel, Jurgen, but it's like, I didn't know that I could be this excited about my business again. I don't
Yeah.
think I have felt this just pumped to be doing what I'm doing since I started it. And I discovered there was a whole way to make a living with the internet and be around for my family and stuff. And so now this feels like the next version of that, but the speed at what, all of that was like this. And it's like, now it's happening. I'm like, oh my God, Gemini's better at this now. And Claude's better at this now. And this, I'm going to go play.
Yeah.
It
I
feeds the
keep
tool
saying that.
playing too.
Yeah. Yeah. Shiny object syndrome. It's sort of, it's all focused now. I liken it often to when the internet first came out. And I was probably and I was in the corporate world in those days. I was one of the very early adopters of the internet. And then I remember thinking there must be a better way to search this. This is back in 95, 96. There must be, I know there's all this information out there, but how do I get to it? How do I find it if I'm looking for something specific? And then there was this little search engine that came out in beta. It was called Google at the time, 97. And I was on forums and things. And so I discovered this through one of these forums, and I thought, I'll give that a try. It's in beta testing, so it's free. I didn't realize it was going to be free forever. And I thought, this is actually really cool, and started doing Google search and got really excited. And that's what it reminds me of. And of course, on top of everything else, in those days, I was constrained because I was in the corporate world. And so there were limitations on what I could do with PC and when we got laptops and so on because of security and so on. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it reminds me of that. Yeah.
Yeah, that's how I feel. It's like, there are times because like I'll be in bed on my laptop. I'm like, my eyes are burning. And I'm like, one more prompt with and I'm like, put it to bed. And I talk to it too. I'm like, all right, that's enough for today. I need to go to bed. Sweet dreams. I'm like, back at you. It's ridiculous. I know it doesn't understand that, but it's so much more fun.
Yeah. I think, I know that consumes energy, and I'm a little conflicted about that because of the high energy demands of these large language models. But at the same time, I'm still continuing to do it, like please and thank you. And I'm done for now. I'll come back to this tomorrow. I'm going to bed or whatever. Because I think that in learning those things, well, first of all, it trains me to keep being nice to
Polite.
people, or keep being civil with people, polite. Yeah. And secondly, it trains the language models in that language. So
Yeah.
I figure that's worth doing for that reason.
Yeah.
So
It depends really. I was really quick. I was just gonna say, it depends on what I'm doing and where I'm at, that meaning as I'm doing this vibe coding stuff, it's like, that's still not broken. That's still not fixed. Here's the message. So I'll get more direct
Yeah.
there, but
Oh,
it's
yeah.
more the beginning and ending, but I try not, I get it. Yeah. That's a
Yeah.
whole
Well,
other
I
conversation
can be
about the
very
energy.
direct with it. I can be very direct with it. So I've got standard rules of don't do this. And
Mhm.
one of the ones that's in there is never give me an M dash, use proper punctuation. And,
Yeah.
and it every now and then it ignores that. There'll be an M dash in somewhere. And I thought, I'm too lazy to go through the whole thing and check
Mhm.
for M dashes. And I said, I told you, how many times do I have to tell you don't
Yep.
use M dashes? So I'll say that to it, and it comes back, of course, and says, oh, I'm sorry, that's right. It is in our
Mhm.
standard operating procedure. Yes, it is.
Or that, or I'm like, girl, you've lost the plot. I call ChatGPT girl and I say, you need to stop the emojis. You're doing my heading, like enough, like emoji. I'm like, stop it with outlines. I'm like, you're making me cuckoo, but that's all right. There are worse things to complain about, I guess.
Yeah. All right. Well, as these AI capabilities start to expand, what do you see as core human strengths beyond just prompting and having these conversations that we need to develop or acquire going forward in the future, particularly as business owners, I guess?
Well, hopefully I understand your question correctly. So I think some of the things I was talking about specifically like with vibe coding or whether it's agents or ideating or whatever, but you got to pause for a hot minute and think about specific solutions that are specific to you and your use cases and your audience and how can you streamline like taking all of the skill set we already have and kind of condensing it into something because there's opportunity there. So I feel like I don't know, there is as business owners instead of because again, like I love the tools, right? I curate them for the newsletter. It doesn't mean I'm
Mm,
trying them all by any means, but the
mm,
one that I look at, I'm like, okay, we're going to come back to that. But I think I feel a sense of responsibility to um, see the windows of opportunity for the smaller business owners and for our clients and people that, like we assume because we're in this space, we collectively everybody knows what we know. Like I've always done that, this knowledge bias that I forget. And then I show somebody who's like,
yeah,
what?
that's right.
Like they're blown away. And so, I think it's coming back to pun intended, but like your own values, what matters to you? How do you want your life and business to feel? Because I think that's the beauty of this is that there was a time, Jurgen, where I would have been like, I want to go to conferences. I'm like, you couldn't pay me to go to a big conference anymore. Like, I have no interest. I'm like, you couldn't pay me to go to a big conference anymore. Like, I have no interest. And I just see, like, we all sort of have that superpower, like you were talking about, that curiosity. And it's like, what is your superpower and how do you translate that into something that can genuinely solve a problem? Because who knows? Like, we could be in 3 years where you say something and the AI writes the AI and it doesn't need, like, we don't know. There is no crystal ball,
Mm,
right? I had a conversation with a friend earlier and he's like, yeah, I just wish I knew where this was going. And some are saying the code is shit and da da da. And I'm all, I don't know if the code is shit or not, but yet I'm a user and I know how it's supposed to work. And so
mm,
as all of these things keep progressing and moving forward, it's like then you find something that's like, look, did you build it with this? We'll check your code. And it's like, of course you will, So, but
mm.
circling back to like as business owners, I think it is the best way to succeed. And I don't know, you would probably mirror this too, Jurgen, is when I do things that I want to do, that I see as a problem and bring me joy to create and work on, they always work, right? So there
Mm.
is this human energy that you're never going to be able to put into AI, at least probably not in our lifetime. And so it's like, how do you bring that to this? And it's going to be super individual for each person. And there's nothing I ever use that it writes out of the gate. It's just, I'm like, it doesn't sound like me or, you
Yeah,
know,
yeah.
but it's getting better. So I just think as business owners, it's like to pause, right? Like who is it? Is it Warren Buffett who would say he's used to spends 3 hours a day reading and thinking? And so while this can do so much of this for us, there's it's okay to pause. Like I was thinking today, I'm like, all right, I'm going to be in the pool all weekend because I worked all last weekend, and it's like, I need to unplug so I can bring a fresh perspective to this. And, I don't know what your initial question was, but I just think as business owners, it's like, how do we serve our ideal client? And for me, like my ideal client is kind of me, like 5 years ago. And so it's very easy to know what would be helpful. And I think with, I don't know, all the teaching and the coaching and courses and stuff I've done, I know that my ability to break more complicated stuff down easily resonates with my audience. And so, I just think it's one, tapping into our own superpowers, and two, you got to have the courage to go for it. Like, let go. When I started doing this a few years ago, I was a little bit like, oh, are people going to think I'm jumping on the bandwagon? I think that was just, old recovering Catholic beliefs. But I just said, now I don't care. Like, I am 100% in with this. I know this is an opportunity. And if I can help other people do this, then I feel a responsibility to do it. I don't know if I answered your question.
Yeah. Wonderful. Yeah. Well, I think the idea of really leaning into who you are and being authentic and tapping into your own superpowers. And of course, the AIs, if you've got doubts or if you've got blind spots in that, the AI can really help you dig deeper on some of those things. And I've certainly used that, even though I thought I'd done a lot of work on myself and understanding myself, but I still got some new insights, which really valuable.
Yeah, me
All right,
too.
Kim,
And
yeah.
sorry. No, I was just going to say, those insights, because again, those are the conversational things you can ask AI. Like, I don't know, like, my strengths, my weaknesses. How do I apply this here? And I just think you can do it across the board. That was a little bit redundant, but yeah.
Yeah. Excellent. All right. I think it's a good time to move on to the buzz round. Our 3 quick-fire questions designed to uncover a key piece of knowledge or value or attitude that guides you. Just short, punchy answers for this, whatever comes to mind. So first one is on the subject of innovation. What's the most innovative way you've seen AI used to strengthen human relationships?
Probably at the doctor's office. My doctor now brings his phone and he drops it. And the fact that he's able to take meeting notes through with AI, like he's one-on-one with me. It was fantastic. Like, it was a really fun checkup, but I was like, this is great. Now I get to actually talk with him, not worry about him facing the computer and just typing in notes.
Yeah, that's certainly one, because actually when we go to the doctor, we actually want to talk to him rather than to a stenographer, if you like.
Right. Or just, anyways, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. All right. Thinking about your own experience, what's the best thing you've done to integrate AI with the idea of that human connection?
The way I talk with it, just the way I talk with it, and then being able to share what I'm learning with people. That is such that just gets me so fired up. I can't tell you how many calls I've had in the last, I don't know, 2 weeks. Let me show you what I'm making. Let me show you what I'm making, because I'm so excited about it. And so it's forced me to get on the phone to share what I'm doing.
Yeah. Okay. That's great. Yeah. And all right. Well, the final question of the buzz round: what's the number one thing anyone can do to differentiate themselves by leveraging AI and prioritizing that human connection aspect? So bringing the technology into humanity.
Again, building things with AI that solve really specific solutions just for your audience and your market. Not broad, really nuanced solutions. And then you get to be the one to share and show how it's done.
Excellent. All right. Well, thanks for getting us through that new buzz round. And I love the idea of, the target audience is one. I've actually done a lot of work on defining target audience, and we had a whole workshop and everything. And I gave that to ChatGPT and I said, if I give you this workshop and this content and this questionnaire that we use, and here's my dream client. What am I missing? And it actually came back and refined the dream client avatar, for want of a better word, for me. And I thought, oh, okay, there's another app that could be perhaps made, which I'm thinking would be fairly universal for all business owners.
Well, and that piece of it, Jurgen, when we're done, if you have time, I'll show you. But like, I'm starting to think too of like, oh, I'm building something that I'm going to use for lead generation, and it generates image and text. But I thought, look, if I can let somebody create this, they have to opt in to use it. And even if it costs me 50 cents, you can't buy paid traffic for 50 cents a lead. It's just not going to happen. And so thinking about like creating a tool that does that, whether it's a paid tool, but I mean, I think there's a lot of great use cases for solving one very specific problem that would be a great lead magnet. And side note, I watched a video the other day on AI SEO, and he was talking about, instead of like Google's Eat and all those different SEO kind of old school things, but tools. And they want to know, are people coming back? Are you creating useful things for people besides keywords and content? And so food for thought.
Yeah, it's interesting. The whole SEO landscape, I think, is going to change quite dramatically. I mean, it's simply because I'm finding myself using the standard Google search less and less, so I see the ads less and less because I'm going to AI straight away. And so, for example, if I'm looking for, I was looking at a piece of software the other day, and I thought, well, my standard operating procedure has been go to Google, find their website, then ask Google who are the competitors, then go to each of the competitors' website, then draw up my own table and saying, this is what I want, this is what option A offers, this is B, this is C. Now I just go to ChatGPT or one of the language models and say, I want it to do all of these things, find me all the options, list them in a table, rank them, and it does it like that. It's amazing.
It's amazing. And to be able to ask, put it in a table. I'm like, well, that's pretty.
Yeah.
That works.
Yeah. All right. Well, thanks, Kim. This has been fantastic. We've sort of gone well over time, but that's all right. We've had a lot of fun.
In my head, it was an hour, but sorry.
Yeah. So where can people reach out to you, find out more about what you do, and perhaps even say thanks for what you shared with us today?
So I have relaunched my YouTube channel, although I've been on pause for a couple weeks as I've kind of been pivoting with this vibe coding. So YouTube, my website, which is getting an update on copy, is kimdoyal.com. But Substack, that's where it is such an incredible source for organic traffic and new relationships. I've connected with so many great people. So, and you just Kim Doyal anywhere. I'm not really active on a ton of other social, to be honest with you. So there we go.
All right. Excellent. And we'll have those links in the show notes, of course. So what's one action you hope our listeners will take after hearing our conversation? Something that would make you feel that this time we've had together has been truly worthwhile, apart from our interaction.
Just try it. Do you remember I used to have a hashtag, just show up? I'm like, just try it. Like, play with something. You're not going to break anything. So if you want to try and develop a tool or an app or whatever, there's vibe coding for phone apps too. Like, just try it. You have nothing to lose, and see what happens.
Excellent. All right. Well, there's lots of options you can try out, and maybe one of the examples that we've had in our conversation today might prompt you to do something similar for yourself. And thanks so much for sharing your time and your insights with us so generously today. Kim, I've enjoyed our conversation as always and learnt lots and had a lot of fun. So all the best for the future, and I know we'll keep in touch.
Absolutely, Jurgen. Thank you for having me. And sorry we went over. I'm not great with short, direct, punchy answers. So sorry.